Welcome to Wealth Well Done. Together, we'll cover a wide range of important topics surrounding money and the impact it has on our lives. From the sophisticated and highly valuable planning techniques of the ultra-wealthy to the commonly underutilized biblical teachings. Together, we'll work to improve our relationship with money and our effectiveness in stewarding it well. Here's your host, Eric Scovill.
Welcome to the 69th episode of the Wealth Well Done podcast. And as I mentioned, I'm going to keep trying out a couple of these different taglines to figure out what works. So let's go with this one, where we examine the tactical, practical, and biblical ways to help you steward your wealth well done. And we'll see how that one felt a little bit better, but we'll see. Go ahead and give me feedback if you want on that. Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Last week we had Tom Costello on. And this week, it is my great honor to introduce Dr. Ryan Hewkin. So, Ryan Hewkin, thank you for being here, my brother.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I got to say, I'm a bit nervous. I'm a fan of the show, and that I think sometimes people say that, but I've not listened to all 68 previous episodes, but I bet 65 of them at least. So, wow, big fan.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, man. I was getting to catch up a little bit on your guys' podcast here as well. So Dr. Ryan here runs Excelsior Health Centers in Missouri. He's got a couple of locations down in Missouri, but I'm going to say more importantly that that's not actually true here at all. But I get to benefit from his work as co-host with his wonderful wife Abby on the Natural Parents podcast. And everything that I love about Ryan is on full display inside that podcast. So, Ryan, before we get into some of the stuff, and we're going to spend a lot of time talking about health here, and really in a way that kind of brings light into what God has created inside our bodies. But will you just talk a little bit about the four pillars of your podcast?
Absolutely, yeah. So we talk about. Just like you said, four pillars, and they are in this order. It's very important to us, but it's faith, health, family, and wealth. We feel as though God set us up to be models of that. He created us to be co-creators with him, but he put forth that order, at least revealed it to us. The Holy Spirit revealed it to us that way. And so we just want to bring forth that knowledge. I feel like a lot of families struggle in those categories, if you will. Not so much that they're not in pursuit of them, but that the world would have them be flipped in the opposite direction. And so, yeah, we just try to bring relevant conversation to the table so that people might feel like, hey, some of the most feedback we've gotten is, oh man, other people are going through this too. That's nice to know.
Yeah. I'm glad you hit the order part of that because. Obviously, being a financial advisor and having a wealth podcast, you couldn't be more accurate. That wealth needs to be put in its proper place, and it is not number one in our lives. It can't be. It only leads to destruction when it's number one. So, you guys are doing it right. I love your show. I love the dynamic between the two of you. When Abby corrects you, as she rightfully should, and just honestly, I mean this genuinely. And if you guys. I would strongly encourage you to listen to their podcast here, and you'll get to know why over these next two episodes with Dr. Ryan. But the dynamics between the two of you is you're not even talking about this, but your marriage is on display, the way that you two work together. So we love being around you, but I love listening to you. It feels like we're around you. So keep it up, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So we are going to go into the health category a lot today. In a lot of ways where this is and what we were talking about before we even started here, the way that our bodies are fearfully and wonderfully made, and what that actually means. Like most people who aren't aware of the science behind our bodies would, that's just kind of like, it's cool that I, grow, that's pretty impressive the way that God did that, or maybe if my complexion feels good today, or if I'm having a good hair day, I'm wonderfully made, but depends on how I feel and what my stomach size is, at this time of month, or whatever people deal with that, and it's just that they're missing the point of that. So when I'm working with someone who's got all the money that they could possibly ever want or need, um, there's obviously this one dynamic, and there are multiple here, but one of them that you can't be just bought your way out of is health.
Right.
And so what I would love to do, and over the course of these next 2 episodes, is get into some of the different pieces around how our bodies are designed, and then get into some of the lies that we've been taught about health as well. And I know you're loaded with content there, so I didn't tell Ryan what we were going to talk about before, but his head's already full now. So what I want to do first was kind of take this little a couple places where my mind goes with this, and then let you kind of pick up and run with it. So when I'm thinking about that, fearfully and wonderfully made, it blows me away to learn new things about our body. And so I want to go over a few of these and hit some of them here, like fevers. And we're going to come back to that one a little bit more in one of the other pieces, about the lies that we've been taught, but just the incredible nature of fevers. You shared on your podcast about the bacteria and in the petri dish. Will you hit a little bit about the purpose of a fever, what that is, why we shouldn't run from it, and then we share that story about the petri dish?
Absolutely. Yeah. So let me first qualify the statements that everything that I'm going to talk about relative to the categories of health comes from a natural mindset. And if you think about that, it can be pretty cliche, right, to say, or it's very trendy, right? It's this kind of natural push in the healthcare world and things like that. But when you really stop and think about it, when we talk about natural health, those words have to be synonymous with each other. Like there is no such thing as unnatural health. Like there's like they're inseparable from each other. And so that's not to say that, modern advancements, medical technologies, medications, things like that aren't important and aren't God breathed. Like there's such good that has come into our world for some of the things that are out there. It's just where I operate from. I start from a obvious, more conservative standpoint, but it's built and rooted in the way that God designed our body. At the end of the day, the same power that rose Jesus from the grave is alive and well in us. And I just want to help people help that flourish inside of them. And so the concept of fevers, I think, is a really good one to at least start to open people's minds to what their bodies are capable of on the fundamental physiological level. Because when we think about a fever, we're often taught, okay, Eric, you and I, we're going to shoot this podcast. We're going to finish up. We're going to go celebrate. We're going to grab a steak dinner, right? Like we're going to go over across town. The chef, unfortunately, I don't know what he had going on, but maybe he used the restroom in between preparing our steaks. I don't know. But something happens and our steaks get completely covered in bacteria, E. coli, you name it, staph, just all sorts of nasty stuff. We both go home our separate ways, but you are up all night long in the bathroom. You can imagine your listeners can be as graphic in their imagination as they would like to be, which and how that's going. But me, I sleep like a baby all the way through the night. Society would have us say that you are what?
Sick.
Right. Yeah. And I would happen to say that, in my opinion, I'm the one that actually has a problem, because if my body consumed something that was supposedly toxic and bad and disgusting for me, and I did nothing with it, and I just allowed that to run and wreak havoc inside my body, but yours identified it as a problem and did everything it could to get it out of there, like your body was the opposite of that. And so we actually fundamentally in our house, I don't even let my kids say I'm feeling sick. They have to say expressing health, because I actually, again, believe that physiologically that every symptom, and I don't mean to be rainbows, unicorns, and sunshine guy. It's just that when your body is working for you and when you view it as such, you start to see symptoms through a different light. And so fever is a perfect example of this, where, okay, again, let's say you've come in contact with some sort of a virus, an antigen, a pathogen, something like that, and it starts wreaking a little bit of havoc inside your body. Your body's infinite wisdom, the power that animates the living world, is alive inside of you. And it said, that's a problem. So in chiropractic school, contrary to popular belief here, we take a lot of science courses. One of which is, biology. We go to the biology lab and we get petri dishes, and you have these little dipping sticks that is a fluid that's full of different strains of bacteria. So the name of the game here is you're learning to identify what's called gram positive, gram negative, different types of bacteria because they respond differently to different things. But what you're trying to do is identify them under a microscope. But first you have to grow them. And so you put them on a petri dish and put it in an incubator. Incubator set at right around 98 degrees, 98.6 degrees, what most people would consider the normal human body temperature.
Sure.
You come back the next day, get them out of there, and the petri dish is completely covered. It's just completely covered in bacteria, fuzzy stuff. It looks disgusting, but that's what you need. And you peel that off of there, put it on the lens, look at it under the microscope, and you see all this stuff just going crazy. At the same time, on the same day prior, you took another petri dish, but you put it in the incubator at 101 to 102 degrees, what we would consider to be a decent fever in the human body. You come back and you pull that petri dish out, and not one single thing grew. You can see where you drew the circle around the area that you scratched the bacteria into the growth medium, and they could do nothing. They were completely inhibited. So now your body, in its infinite wisdom, with a fever, was doing everything it could to keep you from ever getting more, as society would say, sick. And I think that is the perfect example of just one way that our body is always working for us, not against us.
It is so incredible to think. And if someone's hearing this for the first time, I imagine their brain is processing quite a bit right now. I've been, fortunate enough to be more familiar with this now, but it's so incredible to think about that. Like, I forget how society handles this for a second, just on being in awe of God. And part of what praise and worship looks like is being in awe of God. And the fact that he can do that a body can know, okay, something bad's here. I'm gonna bake it out and keep that thing from growing, producing and replicating itself, producing a problem inside of me. And I'm just gonna bake it out. Or, in the ways that your excretory system works and anything else like that, to say, nope, this thing's got to go. What incredible health that you're in there. And so I love that you guys do that, or that you guys say that in your house. And yeah, that one example just, that just shows us it's kind of like the earth. If it's any closer to the sun or any further from the sun, like, it can't have life, but somehow
Right.
it always stays at the perfect distance from the sun, just
Isn't
the
that
right
amazing?
amount. But we're all here because of an accident and a big
Right.
bang collision, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just, that's neither here nor there. But what's even crazier, can I give you this statistic to go on top of that? Because to think about what your body sifts through on any given moment, right? So your brain, it effectively acts like, not to get too elementary here, but a supercomputer, right? So it's processing millions of points of data every second of every day. I mean, it'd be the greatest computer that was ever built. It's in your brain and it's in your skull, and it processes. Most things you look up, you're going to see a number, something to the tune of 37 trillion cells make up an adult human body. So it's not even a fathomable number, to be honest with you.
Right.
But as you can imagine, for me asking the question, what the answer probably is, what do you think that there is a higher number of in terms of human cellular DNA or bacterial, viral, fungal type DNA in and on your body? Which one do you think there's more of?
I'm gonna guess bacterial.
Yeah. But the crazier stat is, what do you think the ratio is? Bacteria to humans, to human cells.
Well, let's say 2-1.
How about 10 to 1? And so your body, and its infinite, and I mean infinite wisdom, it can process all of that and know that, hey, this little bug is causing a problem. We got to get rid of it. But all of those ones over there are really good. And this is where I really lose friends, because most of the time people think that bugs and bacteria and all of these things are causing disorders and diseases. And don't get me wrong, their presence can facilitate that, again, illness within your body. But it's usually because of the terrain within the body is not conducive towards health. And so if bugs actually made you sick, we would all be dead. Like, one of the founders of chiropractic has this quote, and he said, if germ theory were true, no one would be around to believe it. And again, I get that most of medicine is pretty well established around that ideology that if a bacterium or a virus or something is present, you have this sickness. But again, it is called germ theory. So there's at least room for discussion around the idea that maybe that's not the whole kit and caboodle. There's got to be something more going on. And we have to look as a society. And one of the largest bodies of research being done right now is on actually gut health and the way it affects not only just the brain, but our overall well-being. And that's hard to conceptualize again, but your gut is full of bugs. Like it's full of all these bacteria. I think the number's upwards of 10% of your body weight is bacteria. So again, hopefully there's no germaphobes on the other end of this audio, but you got to know these types of things. This is actually how the world works. This is how your body operates within the world. The microbiome, again, a trendy term, is something that's out there, but we are a part of it. We are a very small part of it, each and every individual. Again, you're talking 370 trillion cells of bacteria on the average human. How many humans are on the planet? That's math I can't calculate. But your body knows what you need right now. No one else does.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, let's stay. Let's stay here in the gut health piece, because I think part of what I wanted to do was highlight some of the things that are just the way that the body works here. So like fevers, the story of like breastfeeding, and
Sure.
when my wife was, we had our first child, and she's talking about the baby the baby's saliva communicates through me to tell my brain, or to tell the brain or some other part of the body, what to produce, because it needs certain things. So if the baby's feeling is expressing its health in a way that it needs certain stuff from the mom, then it will get that through its saliva and the way that interaction works. I use that story to tell people, and obviously I probably say it a little bit better, but I'm also not talking to someone as intelligent as you, so they wouldn't know if I'm saying it incorrectly. But I use that story to talk about you can't tell me that we're all just here by accident. Like the Bible talks about, a fool says in his heart that, that there is no God. Like
Right.
You can't tell me like something like that happens just by accident when we all morphed out of
Primordial ooze.
Right. And that all came about by some big bang that we don't know what those things were that banged in the first place and all that. It's just, you get to such stupid types of explanations when we try to explain away God. And the reality is, like, he's everywhere around us. He's everywhere around us. So I think some of those are so incredible. But let's go into gut health here, because that's something, as one of the studies that we were looking at, one of the companies that we were looking at investing was a company working on fighting Alzheimer's. And they were having these remarkable results with this, like, 50% of patients were having no further cognitive decline, which meant one thing to me, but it actually meant something else to a physician who understood, well, cognitive decline actually means this. What you're thinking of as cognitive decline, meaning like the no more, material degrading of functionality. 75% of their patients had no further, that type of functional decline. And when I was like, all right, so tell me what's going on. What's your secret with this? And he said, it's all in the gut. It's all in the gut. Like, and some of the other things that you've talked about here before, you get into some cryotherapy and other things like this, but almost all of this starts in the gut here.
Yeah.
And so it's not the reason that all this Alzheimer's medicine isn't having any impact on, and not that's having none, but it's not moving the needle on the disease at all. And no matter how much money is being poured into that or lit on fire, into Alzheimer's research there, yet it's all in the gut. And they're having these results. So help us understand what we're talking about when we're talking about, I need a probiotic, healthy yogurt or other things like that. Like, what is actually going on inside our gut right now?
Yeah. So there are no two greater systems inside your body, excuse me, that are more intimately connected than your nervous system. So your brain, your actual spinal cord, all of that, your peripheral nerves, and their end organ, which is the gut. So they go everywhere, but the two systems that are super intimately connected are the actual gut and the brain. And there's research, really, really good research on things like neuroplasticity, but more in particular, what we call the brain gut axis, or the gut brain axis, through a little nerve that's called the vagus nerve. Now, that's not Las Vegas, like VAGEAS, however it's spelled. I don't go there. But
that helpful.
VAGUS, it's Latin for wanderer. And that nerve comes off the brainstem up in the very top part of your neck, and it runs all the way down to the digestive centers. And it is the main, what we call parasympathetic, which the parasympathetic is the contrast to what's called the sympathetic nervous system. Sympathetics, that's, most people have heard of that. It's called your fight or flight response. So if a tiger jumps into the room with you, your body is hardwired to either fight that tiger off or run. And so certain things physiologically are immediately going to start to happen before you even can consciously be aware of it. But the parasympathetic is the opposite of that. So if that's the gas pedal, the parasympathetic is the brake pedal. And we need good brakes to have good digestion, because we have to be able to rest, digest, relax, and recuperate our body. And if the gut is sending a signal via the vagus nerve, it's the primary highway at which it communicates to the brain that, hey, something's wrong down here. Something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. The brain is going to be in this heightened state of not healing itself, right? And so we see major implications of this. There's even been research studies where you couldn't do this to a human, so they do it to laboratory rats and things like that, where they sever that vagus nerve. And the anxiety and the depression and the things that are actually prevalent in the rats goes through the roof, because there's no more optimal communication between the brain and the gut. And so when we disconnect the two, we start to see massive problems, right? And so then there's implications. And now causation or correlation does not equal causation, but we have to start looking more than just at the affected system and symptoms. So let me give you this analogy. You're asleep at home with your family, and you keep hearing this beeping going off. It's like a beep, 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 beep. And then it just gets louder. And then all of a sudden it's just this little blaring alarm is happening. Then you realize as you come out of your sleep, there's like smoke, you smell something's happening. What's happening? What's going on?
My smoke detector's going off.
House fire, right?
Yep.
Okay. So now, being very consciously aware of that, you realize that there is a big problem happening, and you need to run over to the smoke detector, rip those batteries out of it, tell it to quit screaming so you can go back to sleep. Wouldn't do that, right?
Well, depend. I mean, my wife doesn't listen to too many of these podcasts, but every once in a while she does. And yes, the last time that happened, I took it out and I smashed it because it wouldn't let the battery out and it wouldn't go off, and there was no fire.
Right, but there was no fire.
A normal person, though, to your example, is gonna say, no, that's a stupid idea. I should check and see if there's a fire.
You know that there's a fire going on. You know, the smoke was the indicator, right? The heat, you felt it. It was bad. That's Alzheimer's in our world. That's diabetes. That's cardiovascular disease. That's obesity. That's these major things. And we as a society continue to keep throwing money and energy and effort at just treating the outcome. And we're never looking at what the underlying cause of these things are. And so, yes, there is a massive growing body of evidence that's saying there is something to do with this gut. And I just am never in anything but amazement that it's like, yeah, we need the research to support it or whatever. But again, God set it up this way from the start. Now, there's many different ways. And again, as you talk about, oftentimes our relationship with money, our relationship with our health, what our physical bodies are, a temple to the living spirit of God within us. Like, God set it up this way. It wasn't by accident. He gave us a written word even that describes all of this. And it's like, we are so funny and so fickle that we think, oh man, like what I am doing, what I have to say about this, what I'm researching on this, it's going to prove X, Y, or Z. And we really should have it flipped on its head. We should look back and say, well, how did God set this up? How did he design it to be? Let's find what it is that messes with that physiologically and go back to square one, go back to the way God designed it. So that's really, again, just what we're trying to help people do.
Man, that's good. Okay. So let's get practical here with this. What do people need to be doing inside their gut health? So I'm just going to paint the picture of a standard listener here, middle-aged man who is, eats quality food as far as he knows, but knows that there's probably been hearing more about this processed food and stuff. And obviously organic's not a new term by any means. What what does he need to start looking at? Because he goes and gets his medical checkups every once in a while. Doctors give him a moderately clean bill of health. He doesn't need any medicine right now. Got problems though.
Yeah.
Got headaches. Got different aches. Got different issues that come up, and we've just related or said that's stress or something else. What does he need to start doing in terms of his gut?
Well, and I know you touched on it, but it's still stirring in my spirit to highlight this.
Go for it.
We can gain the whole world, but if we lose our soul, right? What if we've lost everything? And that is a grander biblical representation of, again, the approach I take towards health. Because you ask any single person who's lost their health what they would give to get it back, and the answer is everything I got. And
Right.
so if we're not careful and we get this out of order, again, I love, and I'm a fan of your podcast, but I love it so much because it helps me remind myself that in my pursuits of things of this world, that they are meant to be, at least in my world, fourth, maybe last in order, right?
Right.
And there's representation of that. And so that being said, I cannot give a do this, right? There's no magic pill. And I know that's not what you're asking for, but any listener that's listening is like, okay, gut health, got it. Let's do it. Let's do that, right? But we are very, very complex structures. And I don't know how to make this any more simple than I've got 7. I've got 7 things, if that would be sufficient for us to run through on what we could be doing to optimize our health so that we can put it that, again, in order of faith, health, family, and then wealth, because that's just the way I believe God designed it to be. So first, number 1 is adaptability. And I know that sounds broad. This is the name of the game when it comes to chiropractic care, is everything I've talked about is really how can I help my body adapt to the stressors that it is under on a regular basis. So in my world, step 1 is be getting checked by a neurologically focused chiropractor. Along with that, there are awesome things that you could do for free right now while you listen to this podcast that will help your nervous system adapt to the environment that you've put it into on a regular basis. Simple stuff. And I promise, guys, it's simple, but it doesn't mean that it's actually executable. We have to work this into our routines. And so simple because it's breathing. We all do that. Otherwise, we're not going to make it very long, but it's breathing correctly. There's actually, some people have talked about this. There's something called Navy SEAL breathing. Some people just call it box breathing, but it's 4-second holds. So it's 4-second inhalation, 4-second hold, 4-second exhalation, 4-second hold, and they repeat that 4 times. Navy SEALs actually teach this to put the nervous system via the vagus nerve again into a parasympathetic state. So if you feel that your body is not adapting to stress, or you feel like your blood pressure is rising, there is actually research that supports that it would help lower blood pressure as well. But doing this type of breath work, this type of exercise on a regular basis will help. You mentioned a second ago, cold plunging. Cold plunging works because most of us, unfortunately, not everybody, I'm just saying a lot of the American workforce, we live under 70 and fluorescent conditions pretty much all the time. And so we have to force our body into an adaptive state if we want it to get better, right? You go to the gym because you want to get stronger. That's kind of how we have to practice with our nervous system as well, doing that kind of thing. So number 2 is detoxification. Everybody wants to jump straight to nutrition. It's very important. We got to put good things in to get good out. But if you don't get the bad that's in out, if your body's not ridding itself of toxins on a regular basis, that's a problem. And so that's working with, honestly, more holistically minded, maybe a functional medicine or what I call a root cause practitioner. There's people out there that can actually get into the root of what is going on, what is binding up your body, be it, and stay with me, listeners, heavy metals, parasites, toxins, all sorts of different stuff that we actually do have in us that might be wreaking a little bit too much havoc. And we need to focus on that prior to working about nutrition. Now, that's not to say number 3 is nutrition. Nutritionally,
well, if I could jump in the last couple months inside our household, we have seen, so we know, so my wife had a thyroid cancer and then had a radiation treatment after that. And since then, the heavy metals that she has been exposed to have wreaked a lot of different types of havoc inside her body. We're going through the detox process now, but we'll get to this later, probably the next episode, talking about EMF, sensitivity to it. There's other things, but we just killed a bug the other night in our house and saw a parasite come out
Mm.
of that thing that was maybe 12 times the length of that bug. And it
Oh my
came out there and
gosh.
just violently just thrashing around. It was incredibly disturbing to see this. And yeah, this parasite just like smashed a bug, and out of it comes this very long, worm-like thing, just skinny and just looking straight like demonic as it's just violently thrashing around outside her. So
Oh,
the
yeah.
parasite thing, you don't have to, do too much of a internet search on parasites to be really I don't want to say haunted, but definitely scared by what could be living inside of you.
Yeah,
So
I
sorry, I
think
just want to throw that in on the detox.
that,
This is real.
that's okay. Haunted's a good term. Yeah, it's one of those things that, again, a lot of people out there are like, that's not a thing. We live in a first world country. Like, we don't have this, whatever. Actually, I belief is the wrong term. That's all I got right now. It is my belief. It's my understanding that if you have a pulse, you have parasites, and actually they are there. Again, God's providential wisdom. They're there for a purpose. The primary thing that they like to consume is toxic stuff, so they actually help clean it up. But if they get a little bit too rambunctious in there, primarily inside your intestines, inside your gut, if they get a little bit too rowdy in there, so to speak, they're going to start to off gas and have toxic kind of leakage from their waste products, and now that's getting in you, and so you'll start to have symptoms of fatigue and bloating and brain fog. All sorts of different stuff is actually connected to this, and the more and more that this becomes trending, the more and more it is actually becoming relevant in the world. So mold is another one, major toxifier, and it's hard too because those things, some of them, I just said, they're borderline omnipresent. I mean, they're everywhere. But
Right.
again, that's why we have to go back up to the top of the list: adaptability. How well is my body able to adapt to the stressors that I'm putting it on? And so if we're constantly consuming processed foods, smoking, drinking, doing, who knows what to just inundate our body with bad stuff, it's going to get overwhelmed. And so we got to go back again to square one. This is another thing that I put these in order for a purpose. You know what I mean? So,
Okay. All right.
Number 4, hydration. Sounds, again, simple, but we're 60 to 70% water. And if you don't drink filtered water, then your body's the filter. And some of the stuff that's in tap water, y'all think parasites are bad. It's worse in there. So tap water's pretty rough. So you got to drink filtered water.
Like what? What's in tap water?
Medicines, honestly, phytoestrogens. Not to go too far down that rabbit hole, but is that a big reason why we're seeing dips and drops in testosterone levels and endocrine disruption in both males and females? Because that stuff is really hard to get out of the water. Thyroid medication is something that's been shown. It just depends on the municipality, but St. Louis County is where we live. Somebody once revealed to me that there was over 100 medications detected in the tap water supply in St. Louis County. And it's like, oh my gosh. But hey, they're at such micro levels, doesn't really matter. Never mind the fact that you're supposed to drink, a minimum of half your body weight in ounces every single day. And the half-life of some of these things, it's just building up, right? And so that's the big problem. But there's bacteria, there's parasites, there's different things like that they can't kill them all. They're resilient. They're just like us. They just want to live. And so they do things to try to survive. That's why antibiotics are often touted as one of the greatest advancements of modern medicine. Don't get me wrong. I think they've done a net. I don't know if I was going to give them a net positive. Man, I hope we don't lose friends, Eric. But that they do good. But we have more bacterial or antibiotic resistant bacteria on the planet than we've ever had before. And it's because we just give them out like candy. Like, man, I don't know what else is going on. You're fighting a virus, but here's a bacteria killing antibiotic. Like, it's just kind of a wild and crazy thing that we're doing. And so again, hydration, super important.
Yeah. Yesterday we took my daughter in because she's got swimmer's ear, and the pain was so bad that we took her in to just get it checked out. And she said, well, yeah, it looks like swimmer's ear. I can't really tell. So here, I'm going to give you an antibiotic too.
Yeah.
I said, well, do you think we need it? She's like, I don't know, just good to have just in case. And that is the norm. That's the norm.
Yeah.
Just take these antibiotics. Well, I don't know if you need it, but let's just do it. And
Sure.
there is a time and a place for that.
Yeah.
And to some parents who, that aren't going to take a more interested approach, then maybe that's better safe than sorry. But we just, as a whole society, we just throw antibiotics at everything.
Well, I think it's a worthy question. Is it better safe than sorry?
Fair. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just of the type that would like to ask the question, right? And you're not a bad person because you want to ask a question. Any mom or dad out there that might have been in that specific situation, but even for yourself, anybody that tells you have to do it one certain way and then uses fear as a motivating tactic to get you to see the world through their lens, no, I'm going to pray for them. How's that sound? Because it's frustrating, to say the least.
You're hitting something very real here, and we'll probably maybe save that for the next episode where we'll talk about how can a parent ask questions when then they're all of a sudden put on a list here now of potential DCFS type situation because they're asking questions about, should I be taking that medication? Should I be letting you do that to my child?
Sure.
So we'll help give some advice to them on the next episode here, but you can keep going.
Okay. Yeah. I just got a couple more that going back to the question of what can we be doing? Again, something that's probably still easier said than done, but is a major pillar in your body's well-being is rest. When we rest, the Lord works through us in ways that you could never do with your brain turned on. The unconscious mind is where most theories around healing and again, we talk about different aspects of miraculous healing and what that could be defined as and different things like that. But when we're talking about quote unquote spontaneous or medical miracles and things like this, there's something inside your brain that's called the theta center. The theta center inside your brain, you have different brain waves. And effectively what that means is that your brains fire at different hertz frequencies, your brain waves. So you have alpha, beta, theta, gamma, all these different brain waves. And the theta wave center inside your brain is that spot right in between fully deep sleep and awakened consciousness. And so this is where dreams happens. This is where a lot of different things are happening. But it's in that window of rest that the theory is that's when our bodies heal themselves. And we need to be getting good mindful rest. So we need to be doing things like turning the lights off in a decent time ahead of trying to get some rest. Detoxing your body actually starts to take place while you're asleep. The hepatic portal system inside your liver is where most of your blood is shunted through the liver. The liver's primary job is to detoxify the blood. That really starts taking place via the circadian rhythm. It's triggered by doing so when the sun goes down. Your first big detox is actually right around between 10 and 11 o'clock at night. So we should certainly be in bed before 11 o'clock as much as we possibly can, whenever we can. And so rest is a major one. People say all the time, it's got to be at least 8 to 9 hours a night. And I'm not going to sit and tell you it's got to be one size fits all for everyone. But we do need to make rest a priority in our lives. And we need to have a good sleep-wake cycle that's somewhat, at least, in some kind of a rhythm with the sun. Same to bed, same to wake every day. That's at least a good place to start. Plus, when you're in pursuits of all things, if you will, wealth and that focus, when you're pursuing goals, be it health, business success, whatever, having those routines, what's wrong with that, right? So restfulness or rest is important. Mindfulness comes back to not just some, Buddha-esque, meditation, right? Like mindfulness is being aware of what does my body need? What is God speaking to me that I need to focus on right now? If his word is dwelling inside of us, let's listen to it. What's he got to say right now that my body needs to be mindful of so that I can make that a priority? Where am I at? What am I feeling? Do I just take time to stop and collect what's going on around me? And so just having that time to get outside, go be in nature, put some put some grounding flip-flops on. If you guys really want to, that's a joke. You can't tell, but I'm wearing grounding flip-flops right now. Eric and I talked about a pre-podcast episode here, but grounding flip-flops, that's something. Just
tune in next week. We're going to talk about grounding.
There you go. It's a piece of this, right? And so doing that. And then lastly, and definitely not least, but movement. So I'm going to give the rundown one time for anybody to be listening. Adaptability, got to help your body adapt, got to detox, put good nutrition in, hydration, rest, mindfulness, and movement. And those things, movement, if we don't move well, God designed us to move. The spine itself is 26 movable vertebrae. God could have made that a totally rigid steel structure. Would have been extremely strong, but it couldn't have moved. And so we would have walked around like droids and robots, and God didn't see it fit that way. And so that movement is not only important for just our vitality and our well-being, it again, comes back to the nervous system and what our body is able to communicate to our brain. Our brain gets all the credit in the world because it's an amazing, amazing organ, and you need to take care of your brain, what goes in it, be mindful of who speaks into it, all these different things. But what your body tells your brain is a fundamental instrument of health. And if it's saying bad things to your brain's only going to be able to do with it, which it was given.
All right. Man, that's such a good list. I'm just so ready to jump in and start recording the next week's episode here. And one of the things I've been working on is being a better listener. I believe, and I'll listen back on this, I could be proven wrong, but I believe as soon as you got into the nutrition, I interrupted you to go back to talk about detox. And I don't think we elaborated on nutrition, which is fine because I wanted to spend more time talking about that in this next episode here. So if I'm right, then man, that means that I'm actually doing this and listening. If I'm wrong and you did cover it, I'm sorry, clearly I got more work to do. But Dr. Ryan, thank you for this. You guys know that I don't push much on the call to action at the end of this. If you're in Missouri, or if you're in the St. Louis area, or you have family there, friends there, I'd really encourage you to have them check out Excelsior Health Centers, which are the 2 chiropractic offices that Dr. Ryan runs. But also check out this podcast. I don't think there's a podcast that I would more strongly recommend, especially to parents with younger kids. Then this is like an absolute safe haven for you to go in there and let your mind be filled and go explore more of just what God has for you out there. So Dr. Ryan, thank you so much. We're going to look forward to next week's episode here as we continue to elaborate on just how beautiful and wonderful that this body is that the Lord's created. Thanks for being with us, buddy.
Man, thank you for having me.
Thank you again for listening to Wealth Well Done. Be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast player, and together we'll continue to improve our relationship with money and our effectiveness in stewarding it well.